right, folks, we can get started. Thank y'all for coming to this breakout session. We got some great speakers today. These two lovely ladies. And for those who didn't see me introduce myself, my name is Alexandra G. Lewis. I work at Nehemiah, Director of Leadership Initiatives, and then also Assistant to Harry Hawkins. And so I'm here with these two lovely ladies. One happens to be my mom. One happens to be the community mom who's like family, both mentors to me, love them both. And to be more formal, my mom, Lilada G, she's the founder of Defending Black Girlhood. She's committed her life to the defending of Black girls and their healing of also Black women. And she has more than 30 years in the fields of education, social services. She founded Black Women Heal, which is a Madison-based nonprofit organization that inspires Black women to join her and in her life's work to defend Black girls and their girlhood by creating safe spaces for Black girls as well as themselves to heal. And then Miss Jackie Hunt, she's the executive director and founder of Foster. And she is a caring, compassionate professional with 20 plus years of experience in the substance abuse and mental health field. She provides culturally relevant, strength-based, and trauma-informed care. And she's also the founder, again, and CEO of Foster of Dane County. So let's give it up for these ladies. So today is kind of a mini panel. So I have different questions that I'm going to ask them, and they'll each just take turns answering them. And then at the end, we'll have time for Q&A. And so again, the session goes to 1:45, and then you guys have a little break before your next breakout. So let's kick it off. We'll see. Miss Reese made some.
That is
all right, dang, we gotta beat that. Okay, good. They're not about to beat us. We're already the best group just because of that. All right, ladies. So your first question, and either of you can answer this first, but what efforts have you led over the past decade, and what are the results? And this doesn't necessarily have to be.
Speak up a little. I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah. So the first question is, what? You have to stop. I should use that. I'm gonna get a mic so that we can just blow them away.
Yeah.
Make sure folks can hear everything.
Some must be Breakout.
There we go.
All right.
They're not beating us out today.
Yeah.
Nope. Thank you. There we go. Oh yeah. Woo. Okay, so the first question is, what efforts have you all led, and what are some of the efforts you've led over the past decade, and what are some of the results? Either of you want to start? Oh, okay.
Well, I guess over the past 10 years, I think the first thing that was created was the Exploring Principles of Leadership, EPL. And that was where I was charged with identifying grassroots leaders in our community, people who I knew was doing the work already, but didn't necessarily have the language to identify themselves as leaders. So the goal was to build them up, provide for them some defining language around the things that they were already doing in their community. Time management, collaborations, ethical boundaries. We do a personality assessment so they know who they are. Then we did communication styles so they could connect the dots to what their personality traits were to their dominant communication style and how that connected or resonated as they worked with other individuals in collaborations. So it was, like one of the very first things that once returning to Nehemiah, I was charged to do. I did created a session called Empower Her, where the goal was to try to help women see themselves for who they were and not just how society had defined them. Um, it was positive, building self-esteem, um, helping them identify the roles that they were in and the importance of each of those roles and adding value to them. Like you're not just a mother. As a mother, you're a nurse, you're a cook, you're a chef, you're a community organizer. Like you're a lot of things when you encompass that one role as a mother. So helping women really believe that they had power and helping them identify what it was. The pandemic hit, and we everyone had to pivot. One of the things that I immediately realized was that my family still needed support. So we really started our food pantry, and providing essentials in the community. Did a drive-through kind of thing, and that effort has it still continues to this day. During that time, I also recognized and identified another vulnerable population in our community, and that was older adults who had been working and who were thriving and had been able to take care of themselves, but because of pre-existing health conditions and things of that nature, they just could not be out or could not risk um, becoming affected with COVID. So dropping things off on their porches, just running around the community. And I had a lot of partners that were doing this with me, so it's not like I was doing it alone. Um, but identifying that new marginalized community was key because a lot of people benefited from that. Um, Sunday Fun Day is an initiative that's come up, and that is for older adults because we too old to be young and too young to be old. And I said we because I consider myself a part of that demographic group. And so we have Sundays where we play cards, we do fitness and exercise through line dancing or the art form of double dutch jump roping. We share a meal, we play cards, dominoes, bingo, those type of things. And back up. Also during the pandemic, we realized that there was a real big spike in the number of Black girls who were at risk for depression and suicidal ideation. And so we created a initiative called Triple B, and that was a collaboration with myself for Black girls to talk about what's going on in their worlds. So it was Black Girls Talk Too. It was Dr. Jasmine Zapata and her Beyond Beautiful workshop and her curriculum, her book, and then Renee Nicole House of Beauty we did Be Unique, and that was creating hairstyles and understanding how to take care of the different textures of your hair and all that other kind of stuff, and empowering the girls. So we did that with high school and middle school girls. And most recently, I took the Black History for a New Day course, and now I go and do small cohorts in our community because I felt like every person should experience this. And so I did what I could to try to get it out there.
It's funny when I first got this question, like, what have you been doing for the last 10 years? I'm like, I don't know. What have I been doing over the last 2 years? 10 years. One of the things, I had a couple iterations of work that I had done, Lila's Living Room, working with survivors of sexual abuse, Black Women Heal, really focusing in on, again, more specifically Black women who needed to heal from sexual abuse. And then during this last 10-year period of time, I started a nonprofit called Defending Black Girlhood. What I came to realize was that some mothers were never going to move or change or heal. So then what do you do for the girls in the meanwhile?
who need help and support, and love and assurances. So I found that just right quick to Jackie's point about the climb and the numbers of suicide. You know, for Black girls, it used to be, I think Black people were like 1% of those who were committing suicide. And at one point, suicide was the second leading cause of death for Black girls between 13 and 18. You know, I think it's gone down one or two pegs, but it's come to learn with sitting in the room with Black girls. And I did a lot of consulting work with our school districts during that time. And just sitting in the room with these young Black girls, third grade, man, they had already lived the lives of a 70-year-old woman, and I'm not exaggerating, in terms of the things they had gone through. And I just came to realize is that when you have gone through that much as a child, as adults, we have perspective. Because we can look back over our lives and say, okay, we had good days, we had bad days, we made it through our childhood. But what do you tell an 8-year-old that's experienced probably the combination of what we've experienced by that age? They have no perspective. And so I really focused on giving them help, hope, and really worked on self love with them and really worked for just advocating for them and helping to train educators and other administrators in school districts to have a larger sense of not just understanding, but compassion for what these young ladies are going through. And, as well as a deeper understanding, it's one thing to have head knowledge, but it's something else to have heart knowledge. I started a podcast by that same name, Defending Black Girlhood, really looking at the stories and the issues and the things that impact Black girls. My first season of Defending Black Girlhood focused in on a young lady from our community named Erica Hill, who died at the age of 15 at the hands of her mother. And when I first started leaning into getting ready to tell the story, I was pretty sure where I wanted to go. But then as I began to do research, look in the courts, talk to people, there were so many people of means and ability who were in this girl's life. And still, she was murdered. And she was not just murdered, but she was one of our Black girls who was missing. She was missing for about a decade without anyone, um, so her mother Gilda, knowing where she was. And so you had a dual kind of a situation where this girl fell off the radar. And so as I really went into the depth of her story, I named the podcast Who Killed Erica Hill? And I talked to the educators who promised her, if you tell us what your mother is doing to you, we will protect you. And they didn't. I tried to talk to her pastors, talk to some people from her church, talk to girls who grew up with her. Um, and Jackie and I, our paths have been crossing for about the last 30 some years, I would say. And her daughter, I didn't know it at the time when I first started telling the story, was a really good friend of Erica Hill. And she was one of her only friends that she told about the mental and physical abuse she was experiencing. So, did that, advocated for some policy change, work with Representative Stubbs to try to get some movement on policy around missing Black girls. Unfortunately, it didn't pass of yet, so we're still hopefully working on that. Um, I, of course, worked specifically with justified anger, and really, I would say, influential in keeping it as justified anger. At a time, people were encouraging my brother to change it. we don't want to hear about angry Black people, especially angry Black men. That scares us. So let's not do that. And I just really, really rode him and encouraged him to keep justified anger because it is just that. That's what it is. And so, and then worked on establishing some initiatives to do that. I am a co-founder of the Center for Black Excellence in Culture and the founder of the Black Women's Center that will be there. And I've been working with that project over probably about the last 5 years. And it's just near and dear to my heart. The center is like my baby. And we're looking forward to open later this year. So I'm really excited about that. You can see it building. Yeah, super excited about that. And we're going to be having some tours on Juneteenth. But on June the 6th, I'm having a special tour for Black women. So, Black women in this room, if you're interested in having a tour, let me know. I worked a lot with community engagement around the center. We really wanted to make sure we were listening to the voices of the people. Part of our mode of operation for the center is that we're not trying to do every program. We're really looking to folks that are doing things in the community to provide space for that. And so really talk to various sectors, law, medicine, men, women, youth, to really get a sense and really to have a opportunity that people felt like this was part of theirs, and then I did a lot of spiritual and artistic healing work with 2020 when the pandemic hit and the killing of George Floyd, and people always forget about Breonna Taylor. I was at a rally. It's actually that rally that we saw on the video this morning. We're at the rally and everybody was chanting, "What's his name? George Floyd. What's his name? George Floyd. What's her name?" It was silent. Yeah, and then they're like, "Oh, Breonna Taylor," and that is just underscoring the work that I do with Black women and our stories and making sure that those stories get out there. But when the pandemic hit, I got a call from this lady I didn't know from the city of Madison. She's like, "Oh, I heard you're an artist. And I would like you to paint a mural. We're getting these murals together." And I just came out as an artist at like 52. Like I used to do art as a kid. And then like in my 50s, I started doing art again. And so when she asked me to paint the mural, I said, "Oh yes, I would love to do that." I hadn't held a paintbrush in my hand since 1978. Like I had no paint, I had no brush. I like literally had not painted probably since I was like 13 years old. And so I just said, yeah. I was like, why the hell not? Yep. And then I got off the phone and called up my goddaughter and said, "I don't know what I'm doing." And then I ended up putting together a team of Black women and girls, my daughter included, and we ended up painting like 10 murals. And so I've really been using and infusing my art as a way of bringing folks closer in to Black women and Black girls. And if you can appreciate us, and I always do my art in a state of either joy or peace. It's one or the other. And I want to create that narrative, not just for us as Black women or for our Black girls. I need white folks to understand that we both have a right and a need for peace and joy in our lives.
Those are great. So the next question is, what are some of the factors that have led to the success of the initiatives that you all have started, / what barriers have you all encountered along this journey?
You want to go first? I want me to go. I'll go. I think my success has come from tapping into places where there is nothing I'm a visionary. I don't like to repeat stuff that people are doing. And if I do by chance repeat what somebody else is doing, I'm gonna put my own stank on it. So I think there was a void. And I think there was success because there was a void in serving in a way that had not been done. The barriers is that Dane County loves to fund programs that work with Black children, but they have historically not loved to fund programs led by Black people working with Black children. And I can remember this local foundation, which I will not mention, that I have been, there's nobody in Madison that's been doing work with Black girls longer than I have. And I could not get a dime for this, for my work. And it was money that was supposed to be specifically for girls. I could not get any money. And I can remember going to an event that they were hosting. And I was doing unique things. I was doing a cotillion, I was doing kind of things that Madison hadn't seen for Black girls. And couldn't comprehend. They couldn't comprehend it. And so I went to this event, and this organization had funded work at this particular center. And I'm sitting down there. I'm the only Black thing in the room, as my brother would say, except for the coffee. And I'm sitting there, and this white woman walks into the room with a boombox, and this line of Black girls come behind her, and she bends down, pushes the button, and then these Black girls start dancing, entertaining the audience. And I thought, what in the hell? We've been entertained y'all long enough. And I thought, okay, so you don't want to give me money for building up Black girls' self-esteem, exposing them to Black women role models. I used to do a annual conference for Career Day for Black girls and all these different things. But you'll give this white organization and this white woman money for our girls to come up and dance in front of a bunch of white folks to entertain them. That's bullshit. And so I think that's what's been difficult. I do see that changing where more Black led, and there's Black led and then there's Black woman led. And there is a difference. White people love Black men in Madison. They do not love Black women. And so it's been a challenge for funding. I actually ended up having to go out of state to get funding. So that's been a challenge.
Some of the things that I attribute, well, one of the main things that I attribute to the success of my initiatives and things and my efforts is I consider myself a chameleon. I can blend in. See, it don't matter which group, where you from, I can relate, right? I can get in there. Somebody, like I can relate to this group of economically stable people. I can relate to a group over here of people who are struggling and who society is deemed marginalized. And because I have children myself across the lifespan, I'm still kind of youthful. And so I just can relate. And that's one of the biggest things that I believe leads to my success at supporting the community and being able to provide and be received by our community. Is because I keep it real. And I think, my former life, I'm really open about that. And a lot of times people give credibility where they believe you can relate. So that's one of the biggest things that I attribute my success to, but also having people who believe in me and who support the things that I do. Having the ability to be flexible, to work in circles and to collaborate with different people in our community is just priceless. Because at the end of the day, if you're not going to be received by the people you want to serve, what's the point, right? So those are some of the things that I consider as key things that lead to the success. Um, some of the barriers, um, one being that financial resources. Because I work with a lot of marginalized and the most marginalized in our community. I'm just gonna say it because that's where my passions lie. Um, there there's a need, and you know, like, I'm a therapist by profession, and mental health and substance abuse is my specialty. So a long time ago, I realized that substance abuse is not their problem. The problem is all the systemic barriers that keep us oppressed: financial hardships, lack of education, safe place to live, all those other things. And so, how can I sit before you and say, hey, well, let's talk about how much did you drink last week, when tomorrow all her things are going to be set out on the streets because she can't afford to pay her rent? And so, that kind of like, when I had that epiphany there, propelled me to do the things that I do in the community and to be who I became. Counseling is what I do secondary. Like, my goal is to support. And because I believe we all have one, but I know my third eye. I see things that might go right over the next person's head. And because I see it, I also understand how to um, engage and to broach the topic or to build the relationship so that there's trust and that people will feel free to open up and share. Um, I'm not seen as a part of the system, at least not anymore, because I worked hard to make sure that people believe that I had the best interests at heart, and that if they came to me for support, I might not give them what they want, but I'm going to definitely try to be of some assistance in the ways that I can. So financial resources always is a big barrier to working with to working with the demographic group that I work with. I do 3 events every year. Been doing them for the past 17 years, and each of those events are to support families so that um, at critical times or times when there might be a little extra stress, to provide for your family or your household. I try to help meet that need, because I'll say, no matter what, pay your rent. Pay your rent, and I'll figure out how to get some toys for your kids. Pay your rent. We'll get some school supplies. We'll get a backpack. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it's Mother's Day. I know your mom's been gone for a long time. Your kid's too little. Nobody gonna be able to take you out. But come to this event. We're gonna build you up. We're gonna send you home with a gift bag, and we're gonna acknowledge you and let you know that you're not alone and support you through that. So those were things that were critical for me, and I felt that if it was something that I identified that I needed, that there were others who could benefit from that as well. And so, resources, and I still do those things in our community, and people still trust. And I really appreciate that, that I have the trust of the community to be able to provide things and to support as needed.
Yes. Great.
Love it.
So the next question is, what lessons learned will you all take with you the next 10 years?
I'm going first this time. I have thought about that. And so basically, Black people have the experience to be a part of the change that they want to see. Like sometimes we judge books by their cover. And just because you came to this event seeking a backpack, don't mean that you don't have skills and can't help in another area. Like I've had moms come to the back to school bash to get their children backpacks and shoes and clothes, and then sit down and start braiding another kid's hair. Because we also sent our kids back to school looking and feeling and prepared for back to school. So we've been in the shop on Labor Day till midnight braiding hair, getting haircuts, and just because, so recognizing that people still have something to give. And even though they might need this, but they can help. So it's like a kind of like a barter, a unidentified or unspoken barter. I could do this, oh, you can, all right, then, go ahead, something like that. And that no one person or no one organization has the fix all. Um, Everybody brings something to the table. And we just have to walk in our strengths and understand that, like one light shining does not diminish another light shining. And then I think the last thing I said about this was I learned how with my third eye to see strengths. I don't see deficits. I don't see the marginalization. I mean, I see it, but it's not my focus. Because I'm gonna find that thing that you're strong, that strength that you have. I'm gonna build that up so big for you, help you recognize that, help you see that for yourself, help you believe that for yourself, that you have no other recourse but to walk in it. And then we might find some areas where you could use a little additional support. So I learned that, everybody has something to give. Everybody, has something. Just finding out what that is and building it up and helping people recognize that for themselves so that they can then walk in that truth.
I feel like saying amen. Thank you, Jesus. One thing I'll say about lessons is something I forgot to say about barriers. I grew up in Madison, moved here 1970, 71, started school here, went all the way through college in the same town. And I know quite often we talk about white male patriarchy and what that has meant. Um, I like to talk about white woman matriarchy. My biggest barrier in the work that I've been doing here in this city has been white women. And we don't always take a look at that, even when we look at our school systems, when we look at social services, the predominant person there in power are white women. I used to be a social worker, and we would go in and study the family. We'd have to write a court report. And I would say almost 11 times out of 10, the judge would take our recommendations in our court report and read them into the court order. And they took our perspective. I had a girlfriend who I helped get into becoming a guardian ad litem. And she was talking to one of our social workers, one of my coworkers. There was a Black father who was wanting custody of his children. The mother was incapacitated. The social worker didn't know my friend was Black. That's called the Black voice on the telephone. We have a professional voice, and so you don't know that we're Black. So she didn't know she was Black. And she told her, well, I'm trying to figure out what his ulterior motive is. Because you know black men don't take care of their children. Now, you, me, and the monkey in the tree know she would have never put those words in the court report. She would have made it very social work to say why this man was unfit. So when you look at social services being dominated by white women are the ones who are taking our children out of our homes and putting them in white homes, which sounds a little like slavery to me.
Need some more time. That's another one.
And then when you look at education, the principals, the teachers, the social workers, the psychologists are all white women. And as much as people feel really good about the desegregation of schools, the desegregation of schools was the worst thing that ever happened to our children. Our children, I know, like what? Yeah. Our children, when they were going to black schools, were loved, they were cared for, they were challenged, they had great expectations, they were safe. And then when they had to go to white schools, they had to go under armed guards. They had to go to schools where people spat on them. Teachers hated them. Students hated them. How in the world could that have been good for us? And what we see now is the rates of dropouts growing and growing and growing because our children are in schools where people don't love them. I've done work with schools outside, not to mention Madison, but I've done work with schools outside of Madison who never imagined they would have black and brown students out there. That's why they lived out there. And they don't love our children. Every day, our kids have to go into a building where they're not loved. And so that didn't answer that question, but I just had to say that.
Answer another one.
Black women must lead without apology. I used to have a bucket full of fucks, and I've turned it upside down. There are none left. Healing is a strategy, not a luxury. Black women must heal. Our girls must heal. We must create spaces where they are safe to do so. Spirituality is power. You know, as I look at us and our generation, and I look back, I look at my mother's generation, my grandma's generation, faith was strong. Faith was sure. And particularly in Madison, when we wanted to do Nehemiah, you know, it was like, what do you mean faith-based? You know, are you proselytizing? And, you know, it's like, but you want to do culturally sensitive work. If you miss the spirit on black people, ain't nothing you doing culturally sensitive. You can't do it alone. And just really finding kindred spirits and really community around the work that we're doing. And just being truthful, you know, I don't care if anybody likes me, except my kids. So I have a lot of truth to tell. I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen Madison change. You know, when I came in the '70s, I was the novelty. You know, I lived on the South Side. My first birthday party, I remember, I was picked up in a limousine, taken to Maple Bluff. That was my first party. You know, and so white people were more accepting in the '70s. Many people don't believe that because they think, no, we're more progressive and liberal now. White people were more accepting because there were a few of us. Whenever there's more than one or two, white people get scared. And so a lot of response to black issues in the Madison-Dane County area is out of fear because there's more black people than y'all ever expected was going to be here.
Oh my.
You got it riled up.
I haven't even stopped. So we have one last question, and then we'll do Q&A. So this last question is what are your dreams for the next decade of equity and justice for the Black community and the engagement of the entire community?
I'm gonna go first just because mine is gonna be real short and simple. So, what's a dream? Take some lyrics from my favorite R&B artist, Mary J. Blige. So, a dream is a simple fantasy that I wish was reality. What's my dream? The same dream that Dr. King had all those many years ago when he did his I Have a Dream speech. I don't need to dream nothing else. That's it. That's the dream then. It's the same dream now.
I have a list, but I'm just gonna be short and sweet too. My dream is that doing this work won't kill me.
Yikes.
I refuse to die doing this work.
Yes, thank you. Thank y'all so much. So who has questions? And it can be to both of them, or you can ask specific questions to each one of them. And I'll bring the mic to you.
Thank you both for sharing your story and your experience. And actually, my question was going to be, how do you take care of yourself? You both have families in the area. You both have like a list of things that you're concurrently doing at the same time. So how do you stay well?
Girl, you watch my face.
I know. I just want to hear you say it.
A little weed, a little mess, some pills. No, I take care of myself by travel. Like I gotta get the fuck out of here. Cause I get up, and I get to here, and I was like, I gotta go someplace else. And so I travel. That's really my self care. It really helps me, it gives me perspective. I hang out with my daughter a lot. She's awesome, and she makes me laugh and gives me joy. And my son used to live on the east side. We used to feel like Milwaukee, the drive. It felt like going to Milwaukee. He lives down the street now, and so my kids give me tremendous joy, and I'm blessed to have supportive family and some great friends, and then my art is very healing for me. I'm sorry. Oh, massages.
Yes.
I was gonna tell y'all where I go, but I like being a walk-in, not even no appointment.
Yeah.
I tell y'all gonna be there. Nope.
Oh, wow. I have a pretty good therapist myself, but I can't just walk in. He always booked up. But anyway, yeah, I do a lot of self-care. In fact, Fernando and I were talking about this over lunch. Healers need to be healed, and we have to detach from the work in order to be healthy so that we can actually engage in the work. So I too travel. I have a regular membership to Elements Massage. I have a membership at Float Madison. I don't know if any of y'all float, but I tell you, if you haven't, you better. I have a grandson that's 14 months old. It's absolutely the joy of my life. And hanging out with him, and then my 10-year-old granddaughter P is just amazing. So yeah, I love concerts, comedy shows. I detach from work now and take care of me. And I don't need other people's permission to do so. I'm very, very fortunate to work for an organization that values that and values me enough to know that if I say it's self-care time, it's self-care time. The work is always gonna be there, and at the end of the day, I'm gonna always do what I'm supposed to do. So, there.
Let's give it up for Black woman self-care. Who else has a question?
I'll meet you halfway.
Yeah.
So I guess this question is for both of you, but it kind of inspired, I'll say Auntie Jackie, I don't want to say Miss Jackie, because you're my auntie. So your Empower Her series, or initiative, how do you, what can you suggest for women that are kept in that box of, oh, you're just a mom, you're just an educator? What boundaries do you help them set to just to reinforce, like, I'm more than just that?
One of the biggest things I think happens in that Empower Her session is first, there's a writing part where you identify all the roles that are sub roles of the roles that you identify. So first you identify your role, then what falls up under that. So if you're a mom, what falls under being a mom? If you work outside the home, say you're a secretary or you're administrative assistant, what other jobs are underneath that role or whatever? And I encourage other women to take time to take care of themselves. Self care, self preservation is the first law of nature. Come on, y'all ain't never heard that before. You can't do nothing for nobody else if you can't take care of yourself. So yes, empowering women is helping them identify, first of all the areas that they pour out of themselves and how do they refill their own cup. You know, you empty, you pour yourself out. So what do you need to do and how are you able to refill your own cup? That's crucial and important. And I model it. And I'm visible about making sure that, especially people that I really care about, that they see that. And it might be through a text message behind the scenes. I don't live my whole life out on social media, but social media is a great tool, to get a message across to a lot of people. In one post. So I use that and then I model it, and I might even identify, so y'all thought this was happening. But at the end of the day, it was A, B, C, D, and you missed, but I'm gonna give you this one for free. And then I help connect the dots. So yeah.
Good. What other questions you all got? I was gonna say, don't be shy. And then you guys get some intimate time to get some real talk.
I am usually shy. I have one question, but I also have a speech. You talked about a policy change about missing Black girls. If you could give me more information, I can write to my representatives and give them some encouragement that this needs to be done.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, I would best say for them to connect with Representative Sheila Stubbs and get more information on the bill that she was proposing and see how they can support that.
You had something else, right?
Yeah. If I'm allowed to do a speech.
How long of a speech? All right.
Very short. I'm very, a woman of few words. But I'm just, so many people here, but I appreciate so much what you talked about. As a white woman who's lived in Madison for 40 years, you know, certainly my eyes weren't open, but I really would like to improve the status. And one of my driving issues is I read in the paper about death rates and the difference in white and black people, the difference in education in white and black people, the difference in, you know, ability to buy a home. And I just, sorry, I just think it's very wrong. And as a little person, I would like to do as much as I can.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. You want to see the dream?
Thank you for sharing that.
You want to see the dream too?
I want to see the dream.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Everybody, I learned, in recent years that I look in people's soul and everybody has something good there. So we need to work on that.
I just said that.
Thank you for sharing that.
You don't believe?
We'll move on though.
Can you talk a little bit more about faith and community? You touched it a little bit more, but if you kind of talk a little bit more the importance of faith and like feeling comfortable in community and having that concept of safety, I guess, that will be important for this type of work.
Faith is such at the core of who we are as Black people. And there is a misnomer that Black people didn't know God until we came to America and our captives taught us how to be Christians. We knew God. That's how we survived. Because there's no way in hell that I can survive off a white man's religion while enduring white man's oppression. There's just no way. So the spirit that we brought over with us is what sustained us. And that's what we have to keep giving, keep showing, keep sharing. And I feel like the younger generations don't have that. And so when something bad happens, they don't have that balance of a connection to a power higher than themselves, a connection to purpose, that you are here for a reason. And all of that is spirituality for me, not religion, but it's spirituality for me, having that connection to God. And that's the core. And if you look at us historically, even after slavery, it was the Black church that was central to our communities. You went there for everything. If you needed a job, if you needed safety, somebody just bombed your house, the KKK just burned a cross in your yard. Whatever it was, that's where we went. And we've lost that center in our community. And I think part of what we want to do is get that back. And that's part of the work of Nehemiah initially, was the whole idea that Nehemiah in the Bible worked on the wall to bring back the cultural understanding of people who had been in captivity. And so that's what we have sought to do with Nehemiah, is bring back our identity and our spiritual formation in our work. And when we say that we are a faith-based organization, it doesn't mean you got to think like I do to be a part of the organization. It means that out of my own faith and my relationship with God, I do the things that I feel are right to do.
We have a few minutes left, yeah. Maybe 2 more questions.
Thank you. So I have two things. One, I want to say thank you to Nehemiah because I am a product of Nehemiah's ACE program via Sister Fabu. Way back in the 90s, Somerset days. Yes, and pray before you drink your juice.
And you gotta try everything at least once.
Yes.
And not like, but you gotta try.
And as I get out here into the community, working within my organization and performing arts, a lot of what I learned through Sister Fabu is the core of the work that I do. And so preaching and teaching the faith part about the work that we do, especially with the organizations in Madison, because in the South where I'm from in Texas, that's you have to have faith in the work that you do. But here that has launched me because through the years, I have had a lot of whiteness say that faith is not appropriate, especially within the financial grants and the things of that nature in order to move forward. So I appreciate that because I've finally been able to walk out the water and enjoy the sand by keeping my faith. And the second thing that I wanted to say was if you guys were to give us a few pointers in the room about how we can dismantle whiteness in our spaces as individuals. I know a little bit, but particularly it's a lot of white people in here, so I want you guys to like take some notes. But if you guys could share with us a few points that will say, as you leave this room, these are some things that you could do starting as soon as you leave the parking lot.
Immediately.
In this next iteration of my work, I have started some, but I'm going to be doing more work with white women because of the power positions that you have that influence the Black community. So my words would actually be to white women. Examine yourself, your motivations, and the work that you do and the impact that you have on the Black community through your positions of power. And if you don't, you're gonna miss. Look, white men. This is a broad thing. White men somewhere trying to make some money. It's the white women that have the closer proximity to the Black community, and so there's work that you must do. And if you're interested in doing some of that work, see me afterwards. Give me your information.
Wow, that's so interesting that you would say that because I'm kind of doing a little rebranding of myself or whatever. And I have a whole series that I'm gonna be putting out to help white women become allies to Black-led organizations. And these are some of the things like over my 30-year career, these are some of the lessons that I had to learn. And I've not had a whole lot of bad interactions or bad relationships, but I believe that you don't know what you don't know. And there's no way for you to be in my shoes. You can experience some of the things in life, like childbirth. Childbirth is childbirth. Everybody knows what that feels like if you've had a child. But you haven't experienced Black childbirth. At a hospital that's white, and the doctors are white, and the nurses are like there's just a lot of things that our white community just can't know. So for that reason, as part of the legacy that I want to try to leave is to help other whites kind of see through that third eye, because we all have one, but you got to identify it. You got to know what your third eye is, and I'm good at helping people identify their third eye and helping people try to see from a different perspective and a different lens. So lean in. When the opportunities present themselves through Nehemiah, if you all on the webs, you all here, you got to be engaged, you gotta be connected some way, you will know. You know, I got a list of movies that I want y'all to watch, and we gonna dissect. Like, I got some stuff for those who truly wanna understand, at least from, I guess, from one Black woman's perspective. 'Cause that's all I can give you.
Those are great. I know we just have another last question.
It's a great thing to end
Well, we'll officially end now, but if you have any questions as we're transitioning, if they're available, they can maybe talk for a few more minutes. But thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all to our panelists.
It'll be, Nehemiah will be putting it out. I am going nowhere. Nehemiah is my parent organization for life. So, it'll be, yeah, but it'll probably be like a hyperlink or something like that, where to know more about what Jackie is doing with whatever, click this or something like that. And
We'll make sure to send that out.
And I know that they will definitely send that out. Yeah.
Your reference to Martin Luther King's speech, to me, is so powerful because that's such an idealistic vision of the world. And I hope in my soul that that's achievable.
The question was about a dream. The question was about what I dream, right? And then I gave you my definition of a dream. It's a simple reality that I wish, a simple fantasy that I wish could become reality. And that's across the board. Like, you can give me, you can name any situation, any system, whatever. That speech speaks profoundly. It doesn't have to be repeated. I can't say it more eloquently than Dr. King said it. So I reference him. Thank you.
I don't think I need that. So, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
This is a question for Ms. G. You talked about Black people are very spiritual. And I'm curious, what parts of your faith are unique to Black culture? Like, does that come from your cultures in Africa, and how is that different in your understanding from like white religion?
So when I went to Africa, I went to Ghana in 2019. It was my first trip to Africa. And just seeing the culture over there, I realized coming back home that the blackest thing, because so much was stripped from us, the blackest thing about Black folks was the church. We hid our African roots in the church. So the way we worship, the reason that Black people are charismatic, they'll go forth in a dance, they'll speak in tongues, that is all African. And that's where you're gonna find the depth of our experience. And so we are very expressive in our spiritual response. And it really has been the foundation that has helped us to survive. And I've been to some white churches. I just left dry, y'all. I'm sorry. I left empty. Because there was just like no spirit to it. It was just like performative. And I'm not saying that's how you feel about it. It just didn't feel that spirit. There was no hallelujah. There was nobody talking back to the preacher. If you're not saying amen to what he's saying, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? So it's that liveliness and that freedom of spirit and movement and dance and singing and clapping on beats that really is what it means to me.
Thank you very much.
Real talk. Do y'all feel like you can speak loud enough to say, speak out loud? Okay. All right,
Stand up.
yeah, if you can stand up and.
Sure.
Yeah, just stand up.
So, seeing as my gender is responsible for a lot of the trauma that's been caused Black women, white women, women. Anything you can suggest or things that you would lead my gender to do to heal that trauma that we've caused. Because I'm not even going to begin to defend what men have done over the course of human history. There is no defense for it, but there's got to be healing for it. And it strikes me that we've got to be willing to man up and face that repentance, that spiritual change that needs to happen in toxic masculinity in this nation. Because it's enforced. Look at the president we have right now. He's one of great example of toxic masculinity as there can be.
Say
And
that.
people are going, yeah. How do we get away from that? How do we move the needle back to where it needs to be to heal everyone?
Great question. Great question. Yeah, we are moving. Yeah, we keep moving forward. I mean, I think there's two responses that I have to what you said, and thank you for what you shared. I think there is the historic trauma that white men have caused Black women in particular. But you know, white men don't bother me these days. Like, if I need a help for something and I call information, or if I call the store, if I don't get a white man on the phone, I hang up. Because the code is going to be, well, let's figure this out. White men aren't my problem. White men aren't the problem of Black women. White men aren't the problem of Black girls. White women are the problem of Black women and Black girls. Because modern day, what white men did back there, I carry in my body. But what I have to fight on a daily basis is the microaggressions of white women towards me as a Black woman, towards our children and our schools, toward our children and families that are in social services. That's a huge thing. I went on an intense weekend, civil rights weekend. We went to all these, we went to Selma, we went to all these museums, we did all this stuff. And one of the things that I said when I came back, we had a debrief with our big group, and I said, I don't need another white person to tutor a Black kid. I don't need another white person to mentor. I don't need it. To mentor a Black kid. What I need white people to do is figure out how ain't none of y'all racist, but you continue to raise children who keep racism going. That's what I need white people to do. Raise some kids that create something different.
I guess, you know, one of the things that I feel like white men, white people, period, what could do is to unlearn what you think you know. You know, like Lilada shared that she wants to do some work centered around white women. I too have something similar to that where yeah, I want to help you unlearn what you learn and help you learn what you think you already know. And I think that there's a number of ways that that can be done, at least that I have identified. And you know, my way ain't the only way, so there's other ways that you could do it. But I think over my 30 plus years of experience here, I've gained a lot of insight. I've had a lot of experiences, and a lot of times I'll test my hypothesis just to see if it's something that could work, and this can work. Another suggestion I have is in your, like I just said, in your little corner of the world, what type of influence do you have and how do you use that to also help others unpack their power, privilege, whatever you want to call it, and then engage, be willing to unlearn what they know and be taught or at least introduced to what they don't know.
I saw two hands, yeah, go ahead, and then you can go after that.
Wait, first.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter, go ahead. It doesn't matter, I get there.
Both of y'all gonna get to ask the question, so somebody ask the question.
You go
Yeah, I'll
first.
ask the question. Dr. King, Howard Thurman, Bell Hooks talked about the beloved community. One of the things I'm concerned about is when we talk about a community's well-being. I'm curious if you all know the ingredients of a well-beloved community.
I belong to one, several of them.
Love. Period. You ain't gotta add nothing to it. Love. That's it.
What does it look like in a well community?
It looks like if you eat, I eat. If you have a place to live, I have a place to live. If you have resources, I have resources. It looks like me caring much about you as you do about me. And if we all did that, how much food do we throw away on a daily basis? It's not a lack of resources. How many houses are empty and buildings are empty? It's not a lack of housing. It's a lack of compassion, which is love. It's a lack of love. And that's the solution. That's the solution. But I'm so busy trying to get mine and make sure you don't get any of mine, then we're just at a loss. But love, I've asked, what's the answer to racism? It's love. Plain and simple.
I ain't got nothing. Said it. That's it. That's it. When you ask what is the beloved community, I can identify several that I belong to. One, my family. The community that I call family is amazing. I have a church community, amazing. My girls, we go back 50 calendar years this year. We started as freshmen in high school together, and we're celebrating later on our freshman day, 50 years ago. That's community to me, the older adults in our community, the older adults that need and want a place to belong, create community. I think community is also something that we are able to create. There's this overarching perspective about a community. I always say there's more than one. And everybody people tend to see one cluster, one group as a community, the Black community. There's multiple layers or multiple, what do you call them, sub-communities in every community. So, but at the core of it all, love.
I thought you said you didn't have nothing to add.
I'm a Black woman with a mic. Well, I had to do something.
Can I just ask one follow-up question real quick?
Absolutely.
Can Madison become a beloved community?
Absolutely.
And what would it take?
That's for y'all to answer.
Right, we just said that. In your little corner of the world, how are you making that a reality?
No, it cannot. No, it will not.
Right, that might be.
It could, no, it will not.
But we're trying. How would you change funding and funders?
Have more Black ones.
Wait, how would you change the
Funders and funding. I'll answer that question.
Go ahead. I got a good answer too.
Funders don't know me, my story, my girls, my community. You don't know. And what I have seen historically in Madison is that you all give money to white people. That's what you feel comfortable with. And it's very incestuous. because all you funders know each other. Y'all talk who we gonna fund. Y'all talk together in your little circles, and you fund the same people over and over again, even if they don't meet their requirements. Especially when people, white organizations say we're going to diversify. Okay, you say we're going to diversify, and then what almost always happens? Well, we tried to reach out to the Black community, and it just we couldn't get them out. And you funders say, "Oh, yes, we understand, because we know it's hard to reach out to the Black community." Instead of saying, "Well, then stop saying you don't serve them," because I know what the Black folks are, and I can reach out to them. But historically, Madison has not funded Black women in particular, and so. Funders have to get out of their comfort zone. I would say most funders that have the power to make decisions about programming don't have any Black women friends. And so then how do you know what I need if you don't know me and my story? And all I did this training one time in Milwaukee with a bunch of white women social workers, and I asked them, who's your clientele? 90% of their clientele, not 100, were Black women in trauma. And I said, who has Black friends? Nobody raised their hand. I said, then how do you know what a healthy baseline is for a Black woman? All you know are Black women who have lost their children, who are is coming out of jail, that are dealing with alcohol and drugs. How do you know how to get there? But because they're well-meaning white women, everybody assumes that they are non-biased and they are doing the work and they can reach the community, instead of realizing that there is absolutely nobody, I said this earlier, that can reach Black women and girls like a Black woman. Nobody. And if you are funding programs for Black children and there is no Black person working at the organization, come on. And we have organizations that do diversity training that don't have a diverse staff. That's Madison. That's madness. Your whole staff isn't diverse, but you train other organizations how to be diverse. Y'all feel like y'all can do the work without us. And that's why the work ain't getting done.
I'll say this.
Why you sound all nice and I sound all mad?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just being, like real. Like one thing that, I like to say is I've noticed that funders, like they put out RFPs and things of that nature. They have a criteria and what is it? All the conditions that you have to meet. Well, every organization is not equal. So, like you can't, like people doing the work in the trenches aren't gonna have or write a great proposal. Why? Because they don't have the ability to pay grant writers or to the time to write the grant themselves, but because they are doing the work. I guess what I would really like to see is, when they talk about making the proposals accessible for all organizations or whatever, and that it has to be equitable for all. That word equitable is subjective because it's based on the ability of that organization. You can't hold a small organization like Foster to hold against an organization like Nehemiah. That's not equity. We both get to see the same RFP. We both have the opportunity, or like it's assumed that the same opportunity to apply exists, but it's not a reality. Some people write really, really great proposals and can't do half the work, especially, I'm gonna speak for myself, that I do, or that my organization or has the impact that my organization has in our community. But I don't apply for funding because, I can't cross the T's and dot the I's. So I depend on, like community support and donors who know the impact of what I do to do what I'm able to do. And then I take a job so that I can pay my own bills.
Quick note, we have like 2 minutes left, so let's try to do like a little rapid fire. If you want to ask quickly, and maybe we can try to see if we can answer quickly. I saw him first behind you.
Mine is not quick, so I want to talk with.
You had your hand up.
Renee, did you get to ask your question?
I did. Yes, thank you.
You had your hand up, and I saw you did too.
I did, and I don't know if it's quick, but I'll raise it. I'm sitting with your question with your comments about white women and white allies, because it's a different perspective and said more bluntly than I think sits inside of me. Maybe I knew it, but I didn't quite know how to articulate the way you clearly did. And so I was wondering if your thoughts about if you're looking for women to be white allies, what you see it would be helpful for them to bring to you to at least start being white allies.
Great question. Vulnerability, compassion. Yeah, I'll say something real quick. So back in the time of slavery, they had to create a law about the killing of Black children, especially for white women, to protect them, because so many white women were killing Black children. And you know what the children that look like masked in them. So yeah, compassion and openness. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and my question was just a follow on your comment about you don't need tutors for your children. I'm just curious about that because.
Oh, I know that bothers you.
Well, it bothers me because that's what I do with your children and your children and grandchildren, and I give them time that's just about them.
Mm-hmm.
And how is that not helpful? How is that not useful? How is that not?
Especially because, like Kaleem said in the education workshop, said sure, he would love to have more. He said he would love to have more Black tutors, but given the number of Black people in Madison who have degrees and could tutor and who are asked to be on every committee, to be on everything, that he is looking to and welcoming white tutors if they come with the humility and compassion to Black-led organizations and listen to Black leaders tell them how to do it.
Kaleem and I have two different opinions. So support Black people. Who's a boss in here? Give me time off work to go tutor.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
How can you support me? Create a GoFundMe so I have the money to take off work to go. Because our Black children need to see us. And I need white people to focus on your children and your grandchildren. That's the work white people need to do. Because you keep raising children that perpetuate racism. I don't need Leroy to know what 5 + 5 is. I need Dakota to have compassion that when he grows up and he's a teacher now and he's a business owner now, he doesn't repeat racism. That's the work that white people need to do, and you don't want to do it. And it feels good when you are tutoring LaQuisha. You feel really good at night, but you're not doing the work with your own families and your own children. And I know it hurts, but it's the truth. Because if white people tutoring Black children were the answer, then our numbers of dropouts wouldn't keep growing. We got a whole lot of white teachers. So if white teachers aren't starting to drop out, white tutors ain't gonna do it either. System change, heart change, people change. Who in your life needs to understand? What child do you know that needs to understand something different so that my grandkids don't go through what I went through? And I promise you, I appreciate your time for tutoring. I promise you, that ain't gonna stop that. That's not gonna change the reality for my grandchildren. That's what I need white people to do. Change the reality for my grandchildren.
Any more questions out there?
Okay, just a quick one. Where is your corner of the world?
My corner of the world? Today is right here. Come on, holla at me. But mostly, my office space is 700 Railback Drive or 633 West Badger Road. I'm generally serving like all of Dane County. If you call me and you need support, I'm not territorial. If I can help you, I can help you. I don't care if you live in Sun Prairie or the Forest, or if you live on the south side or the north side. If you dial the number to Foster of Dane County, we're gonna serve you the best way we can. And you don't have to live in 53713 to drive up that hill to get a food pantry or essentials from our food pantry. We do take the zip code, but I'm never gonna say, oh, your zip code is 53719, you're outside of our service area, you can't have food today. So my little corner of the world is wherever I am and whoever I'm serving the best to my abilities. So that's it. And those who come to my little programs, you know, like, or the events that I do, I have the ability to impact and influence in those spaces. And every time you encounter or interact, you will leave with something.
I just want to say a quick note. I know, even like my mom said, some of this information may feel uncomfortable. You may feel some type of way, but this is the stuff that you white folks say you want to hear. So this is, you heard it today. So you have to take the time to deal with yourself and how you feel about it. But this is truth. And I just want you all to really lean into that and really take from what it is you heard today, because they took the time to be vulnerable and go through whatever emotional state they had to go through to share this truth. And so really take what they're hearing. I hope that, you can just let your guards down, and whatever level maybe of defensiveness or wherever you're at, you can just work to break that so that we can be united and see some change. And so again, thank you to our speakers, and we'll head up to the third floor to the auditorium.